New genetics, where we are now. A lot of this is going to probably get into Dr. Ferguson and some reproductive stuff. But, here's where we're at. We've talked about it. But, that full terminal mating, man, that terminal mating was made perfectly because we maximized heterosis or hybrid vigor. And the thing was, while we maximized hybrid vigor, the problem was we had to sit here and we had to generate replacements. So when we start talking about sex semen, man, we can predetermine. If we've got our superior females in the herd and we only want daughters out of those, then all we have to do is breed to sex semen so that we just have heifer calves. And then if we want to maximize that and say, hey, we want this ultimate carcass quality, we want the most marbling, we want everything to grade prime, we want a big, huge ribeye, etc., then we can turn around and we can breed for males. And so all of a sudden we can sit here and we can improve our carcass quality. And so that's the advantage, with sex semen. The other thing is, too, when we start talking about some maternal traits, and what we say earlier was the hardest trait for us to do? Longevity. And so, guys, once we get one in production and we realize, and she's 13, 15 years old, and she's probably not going to do much for us again, then we can make sure we get a kept for cat. So a process for sex and semen, and, they can either take it direct with a fresh, or they can take it from a frozen. And so you're going to end up with a little difference there. You're going to end up with, you might end up where you have to use 2 straws of semen, or 3 straws to end up with 1 straw of sex. And so that's probably the thing. If you go back to some older genetics, you have the opportunity to sit and utilize that from a bull or from a female or from a bull from years back and say, I need some more of that in my herd because his daughters did me a really good job. And so all this is for the process, when we start talking about sorting, and that's what we're going to call it. We'll call it sort. We may call it reverse sort, okay? And so what we do is we specific, DNA-specific fluorescent. And so that with the X chromosome will fluoresce more. And if you remember which of the sex chromosomes was larger and had more DNA and more material on it, if we go back to our X factor in our large heart, and that was the X chromosome. And so we end up then where it's a lot brighter and easier to see. And so sperm of the X chromosome was going to fluoresce more because it was a lot larger. And if you remember, we had that chromosome there with the X was about like this, and our one with the Y was a lot smaller for that pair. So Y chromosome is going to have less DNA in it. Now the process, all they're going to do, guys, they're going to drop it down, and then we're going to sit here. They're going to have their little piezoelectric. You know what piezoelectric crystal is? It's exactly what's in the end of my ultrasound machine. So they shoot some sound waves. And what we're going to do when we shoot them through, we're going to get some reflection. We pop that laser, that sound deal through, and we're going to end up where they get bounced off. And so we'll end up, with more of our X on one side, more of a Y. And so we're going to have some waste in the middle. And is it 100% on the procedure? No. You're going to have some overlap. Another trait, IVF. Now, here's the thing, guys. This means in vitro. That means in a test tube or in a petri dish. So we collect what we need and we do all the work, and the mating occurs in a petri dish. And we can super ovulate, with follicle stimulating hormones, some other things. Don't worry about that. But we can increase ovulations. And the cool thing is we can even sit here and aspirate. We can go in and get eggs out of that egg nest in there while she's pregnant. And so particularly for that really old 13-year-old female, let's go with an IVF deal. Let's pop it in a petri dish. Let's flush them. Let's do those matings inside that petri dish. So aspiration or ovum pickup process there where we're harvesting a bunch of unfertilized eggs that will then be fertilized in that petri dish later. Take whatever sperm of whatever older bull that we want to use and use it with that fertilization. So the process, day 0, we're going to harvest them out. Day 1, we'll fertilize. And then day 7, we're going to transfer. And what we're going to do is at 7 days after staying in heat for the recips, we'll be able to sit there and take those embryos. And guys, we're going to grow them in an incubation media in a set environment. And then we'll transport them, or we'll put them into those recip cows 7 days later. In vitro embryo production. And in the lab, we're going to harvest directly from the follicle. And the oocytes are matured, fertilized, and they're cultured in vitro. In vivo means in the animal. In vitro means we're doing it in a lab. So we're going to culture media environment must mirror that of the cow. And so primary thing is going to be a temp aspect, maybe a humidity aspect. And so when we're doing that, doing these flushes, you know, they'll have that, man, they will have that window unit set on 80 degrees. And as soon as they pull, and you think about it, as soon as they pull that egg out of that environment in that animal, it's 98 plus degree Fahrenheit. And then all of a sudden they expose it to something that's 21 degrees Fahrenheit, you know, for a handful of seconds. So they're going straight across to get it into that lab ASAP and back into an environment that is more close to what they're going to experience. Okay? So, oocytes are going to mature, fertilize. We're going to culture them all in a lab. Culture media environment must mirror that of the cow, and make sure that you understand that. And it's a pretty quick process. Advantages, hey, I can use semen for more than one bull. I can split those. If she turns around and gives me 20 eggs, you know, 20 number ones, and what I can do is I can put 10 of those in here and breed those to bull A, and then I can pull the other 10 and breed those to bull B. So I got a chance, guys, in one generation to put in 10, you know, full sisters or full siblings, because that egg, you know, each of those 20 eggs are a little different. We talked about Mendel, and, you know, there's a good chance to be a big A, little a, or big B, little b, etc. So each of those are going to be different. And that explains also that reason why we don't always look the same as our siblings. So one straw of semen, you know, I can take one straw and I can turn around and produce quite a few. And, you know, if it's sex semen to start with, hey, that's going to guarantee me 10 females or 10 males to bull A out of the same mama, and 10 out of bull B to the same mama. It doesn't take me long to realize real quick which bull's better than the other. So one straw of semen is going to produce quite a few. And here's the other thing. Non-fertile female, we talked about it. Gosh, she's 12, 13 years old. It ain't quite working. Hey, we're just going to go flush with the eggs that are left in that ovary out. So more embryos right there per donor, because we can flush while she's pregnant. We don't have to wait. So embryo production, and average session yields 4 to 5 transferable qual. I'm going to give you one thing, and this is variable. Man, I've seen 20. They've talked about some females yield 30 number ones, ready to go, super good. Other females generate 4 or 5, you know, and then down to transferable, they don't have a 1 or 2. And so this is going to be variable depending upon some genetics and depending upon time of the year, condition of the female, etc. It's her pretty routine. You send her over to a place like Transova, and what you end up with, guys, you bring her over to Transova and you just let her rock. And so they're flushing, and then all they're doing is basically handling all those in a petri dish and then let's freeze. So typical ET or embryo transfer going to be performed every 30 to 60 days, and that's the advantage right there for IVF. Here's the thing also as well. We got 55 embryos. You know, you sold that one calf out of that mating last year for $10,000. I mean, boy, this was the biggest home run. So we said, you know what, for 10 grand, we're going to turn around and invest that money back in from a reproductive standpoint. And now all of a sudden we got 55 embryos in the tank. If nothing else, we can show the accountant the first one sold for 10 grand. You can turn around and use that also from a marketing aspect. IVF advantages. Biggest advantage. Guys, it's all about the mama. So you take that power female. And the other thing is too, man, we can go back in, and I always call it dipping back in the tank. And that's into the semen tank. And you can take an old bull, like we said, hey, man, he's got great offspring out there. Man, I love his daughters. Guess what? Let's go to bed. Let's go back, and then let's just go ahead and take it to the house and take it to the bank, and let's make a bunch of them. So lower cost right here, 50 cows for a $50 straw of semen. That's going to come in at $2,500. In this case, we're going to sync up about 10 or 12 cows or 20 cows. We're going to sit here and only need about 2 straws of semen. So just in semen cost alone, we've saved a couple grand. So we have that opportunity for us to use it and to maximize it from a production standpoint. Now, IVF advantages, and this is the money in the bank. Guys, we're going to produce embryos from pregnant females. So even though she's pregnant, I can still get those unfertilized eggs out. Here's the thing. They're on the same cycle. I don't worry about her not breeding, her having to have whatever, her having to have a bull up later, etc. She's pregnant. She's in production. And that's the other thing we run into with a lot of these donors. Words you need to know there. Donor means that superior female. Recipient or recip carries that pregnancy from another. And hopefully your recip is a good female. So, I mean, she's very fertile. She milks. She's good at raising them. She takes care of them, you know, etc. All those maternal instincts. Hopefully she's not a crazy, because if she is, then you may end up with one of those offspring with that egg out of this one stupid recip. They may be stupid too. All right, excess use of hormones. Hey, we're not shooting her up all the time. We're going to walk right in. We're going to flush her. We're going to take those out. Here's the other thing I don't necessarily agree with, but, you know, if you're thinking that heifer right there may be great, or if there's a problem and she's starting to bloat or something, you know what? We can flush and take some eggs out of her and get her into production quicker. I like to make them prove themselves because, you know, coulda, woulda, shoulda. She's supposed to be great. Well, you know, I've heard that too many times. And so that being the case, she's supposed to be great. I like to let them prove themselves first. But, you know, if you're from a marketing standpoint, everybody's anticipating offspring off of it. Hey, flush her and go ahead and get you a couple of eggs and sell them for, and you know, cash in. Disadvantages, and you know, some of them don't freeze as good. Some of them don't thaw as good, don't come back out. Temperature regulation during that process, and not so much a maturation fertilization. You know, we get them up into this deal, guys. That's basically in an incubator. So we're not messing with it. We ain't getting in there. We ain't rocking the boat, etc. However, we just talked about collection. And, you know, inside the cow, she's in there at 100 degrees, 98.7, 100 point, or 99.2, 99 point. Sure, you know all these acronyms too.